The bank's marble floors gleamed under the morning sun, reflecting the organized chaos of tellers, clients, and security guards moving briskly to and fro. Priya, the bank manager, sat at her glass-encased office, scrolling through emails and checking figures on her laptop. Efficiency was her mantra, and she prided herself on running the branch like a well-oiled machine. Just then, the door opened with a soft chime, and an elderly man slowly stepped inside. He leaned slightly on a wooden cane, the tip tapping nervously against the floor. His clothes were neat but worn, and his face bore the quiet lines of age and worry. Holding a small, overstuffed folder close to his chest, he took tentative steps toward the counter. "Good morning, sir. How may I help you?" A young teller greeted politely. I need to discuss my pension account," the man said in a soft, quivering voice. His eyes flicked nervously around the room, as if apologizing for merely being there. Priya looked up from her phone, her expression one of mild irritation. She gestured sharply toward the man. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked, her tone clipped and impatient. "No, I was told I could come in any time," he stammered, adjusting his glasses and fumbling with the papers in his hands. Priya's eyes narrowed. She leaned forward, her voice sharp enough to carry across the lobby. "Sir, we have rules here. Appointments are mandatory. You can't just expect to be served on a whim." A hush fell over the room. Other clients glanced over, some whispering, some shaking their heads. Mr. Sharma's face flushed crimson. He opened his mouth to speak, but only a small, choked apology came out. I didn't know." Priya cut him off. "You should know. It's common sense. This is not the first time someone wastes our staff's time." She tapped her fingers impatiently on the desk. "Please wait until you have scheduled an appointment." The old man lowered his eyes, shoulders slumping. He shuffled backward slowly, clutching his folder like a shield. His cane clicked against the marble in uneven rhythm, echoing his embarrassment through the silent lobby. A single tear welled in the corner of his eye, quickly brushed away. Before leaving, he whispered something quietly into his phone. Priya, oblivious to the conversation, turned back to her laptop with a smug sense of accomplishment, believing she had reinforced order and discipline. She didn't notice the subtle looks of discomfort from her staff or the sympathetic glances from other clients. Outside, the cold winter air hit Mr. Sharma's face, but he seemed almost lighter. He walked slowly down the street, muttering quietly, his voice carrying determination rather than defeat. Somewhere in that brief phone conversation, a ripple had started, a ripple that Priya had no idea would come back to engulf her. The afternoon sun poured through the tall glass windows of the bank, casting long shadows across the polished floor. Priya sat in her office, her posture rigid, reviewing the final terms of the $3 billion deal that had consumed months of her life. Her phone buzzed repeatedly, but she ignored it, convinced that nothing could derail her. The investor was due any minute, and everything depended on her polished performance. Meanwhile, across town, Mr. Sharma walked slowly along a crowded street, his cane tapping rhythmically against the pavement. His mind wasn't on the chill in the air or the noise of traffic, it was on the humiliation he had just endured. But he wasn't the type to stew in anger. No, he had a sense of justice that went beyond mere complaint. Pulling his phone from his coat pocket, he dialed his grandson, a young professional working at one of the firms involved in major financial deals. The grandson answered quickly, a hint of curiosity in his voice. "Grandpa, everything okay?" "No, beta, it's not okay, Mr. Sharma replied, his voice firm but calm. He recounted the morning's events in detail, the sharp tone, the dismissive attitude, the way the manager had shamed him in front of others. He didn't exaggerate, he simply told the truth. The grandson listened quietly, his frown deepening with every word. I understand, Grandpa. That's awful, but why are you telling me?" "Because, Mr. Sharma said, how someone treats the most vulnerable says everything about them. And people need to know." By the time the call ended, a small but powerful chain of events had been set in motion. The grandson, concerned and quietly alarmed, sent a discreet message to his colleagues, who happened to be part of the decision-making team for the massive investment. His note was simple. "Be careful, manager at the bank reportedly mistreated a senior client this morning." Back in the bank, Priya was oblivious to the storm brewing outside her glass walls. She reviewed charts, numbers, and projections, double-checking every clause in the contract. She prided herself on control, believing that professionalism and sharp negotiation skills alone would secure the deal. Yet, the seeds of doubt had already been sown elsewhere. Hours later, when the investors arrived, Priya would soon realize that no spreadsheet, no persuasive speech, and no polished demeanor could protect her from the consequences of a single act of arrogance. A momentary lapse in empathy had quietly begun to unravel the months of meticulous planning, and the first cracks were just starting to show. The conference room was sleek and modern, lined with floor-to-ceiling glass and a long polished oak table. Priya sat at the head, her laptop open, documents neatly stacked, every detail of the $3 billion deal at her fingertips. She smiled politely as the investors filed in, offering handshakes and formal greetings, confident that professionalism and charm would carry her through. At first, the meeting proceeded smoothly. Priya explained projections, risk assessments, and strategic benefits in her calm, practiced tone. Charts glowed on the large screen, numbers danced across the slides, and everything seemed perfectly in place. But then, in a quiet aside, one of the investors, Mr. Lawson, leaned toward his colleague, speaking in a tone just loud enough for Priya to catch fragments. "I heard about an incident at this branch this morning, something about an elderly client." Priya's smile faltered slightly. She maintained her composure, brushing it off. "I'm not aware of any issues," she said smoothly. "Our branch maintains the highest standards of client care." Mr. Lawson's eyes narrowed. "I don't know if you are aware, but apparently a senior client was publicly shamed by management. My firm values ethics and empathy as much as profit. How are we to trust that our billion-dollar investment will be handled by people who treat clients respectfully?" A ripple ran through the room. Priya felt her throat tighten. She tried to interject, but the investors continued, their tone polite yet firm, their concern unmistakable. One by one, questions shifted from the contract to the bank's culture. How were vulnerable clients treated? How did the bank ensure fairness and respect? Priya's heart pounded. She fumbled through explanations, citing policies and training programs, but the words felt hollow. The investors exchanged glances, their unease growing. They didn't care about charts or figures right now. They were judging the character of the people running the institution. Minutes later, the atmosphere shifted entirely. The confident, controlled environment Priya had cultivated crumbled. Her meticulous preparation, her months of strategy, all seemed insignificant in the face of this one incident. Mr. Lawson finally leaned back, closing his notebook. "I'm sorry, Ms. Priya, but we cannot proceed under these circumstances. We will be taking our business elsewhere." The words hit like a punch to the gut. Priya sat frozen, her mind racing. How could a single morning, a few sharp words, erase the trust and credibility she had worked so hard to build? The room emptied quickly after that, leaving her staring at the empty chairs, the glow of the presentation screen reflecting her disbelief. Outside the walls of the bank, the ripple she had ignored, Mr. Sharma's quiet phone call, had grown into a wave that now threatened to drown her career. By evening, the bank was quieter, the hum of computers and chatter fading into the soft echoes of footsteps on marble. Priya sat alone in the conference room, staring at the empty chairs that had just moments ago held some of the world's most powerful investors. The documents she had prepared with painstaking care sat untouched, a silent testament to months of effort now crumbling in her hands. Her fingers trembled slightly as she closed her laptop. She had rehearsed every possible scenario, anticipated every objection, and yet she had overlooked the simplest, most human variable, empathy. A single encounter with one elderly client had cascaded into a chain of events she could not control. Priya's mind raced. She could feel the weight of the $3 billion deal slipping away like sand through her fingers. Calls she had scheduled with legal advisors and financial planners now seemed futile. Her professional reputation, built over years of diligence and ambition, felt suddenly fragile, teetering on the edge of collapse. Across town, Mr. Sharma sat in his modest apartment, a small smile on his face. He hadn't sought revenge, he had only shared the truth of his experience with his grandson. Yet in doing so, he had reminded the world that respect and dignity were not optional, they were essential. The ripple of his courage had traveled further than he could have imagined. Back at the bank, Priya finally rose from her chair and walked to the glass wall overlooking the city. The streets below were alive with people going about their lives, oblivious to the drama that had just unfolded in her office. The realization struck her with painful clarity. Wealth, power, and deals meant nothing if they came at the expense of basic humanity. Later, when the board of directors called to discuss the fallout, Priya knew that the damage was not just financial, it was personal. She had lost trust, credibility, and a monumental opportunity. But perhaps the greater loss was the lesson she had been forced to learn. Arrogance and impatience, no matter how brief, could undo even the most meticulous plans. That night, as she left the building, she couldn't help but wonder how many other moments of thoughtless pride had gone unnoticed, quietly shaping the world in ways she could not control. Meanwhile, Mr. Sharma's quiet dignity remained intact, a reminder that even the smallest acts of courage and honesty could leave an indelible mark. Priya would have to rebuild, not just her career, but her understanding of what it truly meant to lead. And somewhere, in that simple act of compassion and truth-telling, the balance of the world had shifted, proof that empathy, respect, and integrity were worth far more than any billion-dollar deal.